welcome, Rodney. How are you?
Thank you. I'm fine. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, I mean, I purchased your book when I first heard that it was out, and it's really basic and easy to read, but it has such strong lessons in it. And so, if you could tell me, what it motivated you to write a book about the racial wealth gap, which is something we talk about quite a bit.
Yes. Well, I have always been basically promoting financial planning and financial literacy. And people have been after me for years to write a book that applied specifically to Black people, financial planning, and why specifically to Black people? Why it's different is because our issues are so much different from white Americans. So during the pandemic, it made sense to combine the racial wealth gap with that financial planning guide for African Americans, and that's sort of people telling me for years, and it was the time, it was the right time to do it.
And I think your book addresses this, which I think is so important. We hear a lot, I mean, so often about this wealth gap. We don't always understand what has happened to other than slavery, right? About why we have this gap, and we haven't really looked at the steps that need to be taken to close this gap. You do that in your book, and so talk a little bit about that.
Okay, well, I just thought it was the first how we got here. I thought it was important that you don't just say, okay, we got all these issues, and to really talk about what really put us here, and it was racism and discrimination. So you could talk about. Actually, there was a lot written about during the social justice protests about Tulsa, and how there was a thriving Black middle class community and it was burned to the ground by an angry white mob. Well, Tulsa, many people don't realize this, that Tulsa was repeated, dozens and dozens of times in basically every major American city. And thriving Black communities and Black wealth was burned to the ground. Uh, I mean, and then you look at things, just moving on to another one. World War II, the Veterans Act, okay, was supposed to help veterans, but it ended up helping white veterans more than Black veterans. And how did that happen? Basically, when Congress passed the act, they pushed the administration down to states. So states did everything they could. Okay, at that time, veterans coming back from World War II, veterans did everything they could to keep Black veterans from benefiting. And housing is such a key part of wealth, anybody's wealth. Uh,
Hmm.
and so the housing assistance, I mean, we never got. And I point to one thing in the book, it's Levittown, which was basically all these houses built for veterans and offered to veterans at cheap prices. Black veterans could not live in those communities like Levittown. And in fact, there were covenants that outlawed Black people from living in those communities. And so from there, you had these white veterans starting to build generational wealth because they owned
Hmm.
homes, and Black veterans were just shut out. So um, and so then you talk about, so where are we? Well, the average white household have white households have an average wealth of $171,000, and that compares to an average of 17,000 for Black households. And then you look at home ownership. We talked about how important that is. And 43% of Black Americans own home compared to 73% of white Americans. Uh, and we know about redlining, we know about racial discrimination when it comes to mortgage loans and real estate. So that's why I felt like I had to lay it out. Okay, we didn't do this to ourselves. I mean,
Right.
all these things were oh, we have experienced this, and as a result, our way of life has suffered.
And that's hundreds. I mean, it's not only decades, but it's centuries of years where, and I think that's why so many people went from the word we want equality to we want equity, because equity just has is a different numerical, I guess, value when it comes to trying to make things to even the playing field.
Right.
But I mean, with that long history, and we're looking at this now, one, defining generational wealth, and I would like to ask you to do that for us, and also, will we? Is it right for us to measure ourselves against others who have always and will probably continue always to have more while we have less? Do we create a different standard for ourselves, or how does that work in this country? I mean, will we ever get equity? I guess that's the question I'm trying to get to.
Okay, we'll start out with basically generational wealth, and that's basically um, ensuring that you pass wealth from your generation to your children. Okay, and and ways to do that are basically to leave a legacy. I mean, leaving a legacy with your children. Uh, if you own a house, leaving a house, you own stocks and bonds, but also basically estate planning. I mean, um, which is something um, that we don't do as a people the way we need to. Um, it's surveys have shown that we don't have wills done in the same numbers as white Americans, and when you don't have a will, it just sort of, I mean, it basically leaves it up to somebody else to
Hmm.
to basically distribute your estate. So I'm big on estate planning. I think it's important. Financial literacy. Um, parents talking to their children. It's almost taboo for Black people to feel like it's almost taboo to talk about finance with their children, um, and it's and if you talk if you ever have dinner with a white family, it's an entirely different conversation.
Unless they're really rich. I saw a movie
Right,
once
right,
where
that's right.
the really, really, really rich white people don't tell their kids. They don't tell them anything about the money. All they know, tell them is that you're rich, and that's it. Don't tell me. Don't ask me where the money came from. Don't ask me how we became wealthy. It's yours, and just be prepared to
Right,
to,
right.
to manage
So,
it.
and I actually, friend Don Kelly owns a business in Jamaica, Queens, New York. Okay. And she talked about how when she was a little girl, her mother made her write out the checks for the bills.
Mm.
So she knew what everything cost, but she said, I also knew to never ask for anything because I knew there was nothing left. And compare that to kids today who
Yeah.
parents pay their cell phone. They don't even know how much the cell phone bill is that their parents are paying. You know,
Wow.
so it's they're increasingly teaching financial literacy in high schools, but some of it, um, some of it you have to say the parents didn't know and they don't know, but when they do teach the kids, they tend to share it with their parents, so that And another thing I'm pretty big on is find a financial planner. You
Mm.
know, um,
Hmm.
people. It is important to have somebody to help you guide you through the process of saving because you don't know how to do it. It sounds simple, right? It sounds simple, but we are, as Black people, tend to be very conservative investors. I'm not saying go take a risk, get into risky things, but CDs are paying literally nothing now. So and we're kind of nervous about the market, and there's reasons for all of this. I mean, if you don't have a lot of money in the first place, you're nervous about basically risking it in the stock market when you invest. So
Yeah, but it's interesting because I asked a minister once on the show. Churches teach us I mean, that's part of what they do, to tithe, that 10%. And so everybody's got that message, whether they do it or not, they've got that message. But we don't teach ourselves about the 10% that we ought to give to ourselves. My dad used to always say, pay yourself first. And I didn't understand what that meant because I didn't have anything to pay myself with. But I got it later on that, that is important. No matter if you use a dollar, $5, 10, take a percentage, just like you do with the church, take that 10% and put it someplace, So I think that message is a good one, is a good one. So can we ever get to, I mean, let's look into, the looking glass here and say, what's down the road for racial equity, um, or bridging this racial wealth gap in Black America?
Well, okay, basically, I see a two-pronged approach. Okay, one is the self-help. Okay, this is where we say, you know, start saving, start investing, and one of the big ones is the free, what I call free money. When you have when your company offers you a 401k and they offer a match and you don't participate, that's doesn't make sense. Okay, you're basically giving up free money. And I talked about finding a financial advisor, um, um, preferably a certified financial advisor. Now that's one. Okay, but that in itself, okay, all the improve your credit, you know, do estate planning and a generational wealth. Okay, and but the other part is no, we will never be evil, equal. I mean, financially, we won't close that gap by ourselves, uh,
Hmm.
and so that means government intervention or corporate intervention. And one way is reparations, which are quite controversial. And I don't know if we'll see them, but um, um, a Duke University economist did a book on reparations from here to equality. He estimated that it would take, if basically it would take $12 trillion for to bring the average assets of a black family up to that of a white family, and
Wow.
that's what it would
Hmm.
cost for reparations.
Hmm.
And that so reparations one, and then and there are housing basically. Um, there are communities that are experimenting with basically direct payments to poor residents. I mean, basically, and a couple in California, and some mayors have endorsed it. And when they followed up, it showed that those families that got those direct payments, even if it was just a couple of $100 a month, it made a difference in their lives, and it made them more positive about things. Okay,
Right.
okay, and the last thing is a thing that's called baby bonds. Um,
Mm.
that Cory Booker has introduced a bill, and basically, and the thing of baby bonds is basically the government would give every kid born $1,000 uh, every year. Okay, and and it would basically the ones with the it would be based how much they would get would depend on their parents' income. So when they got so and a donation is made every year. So by the time they got 18, they would have money that they could use to college tuition, buy a home, buy a car, whatever. And um, it had Morningstar has estimated that baby bonds would cut the racial wealth gap basically in half.
It
So
it sounds good. It all sounds good. I think though you said the financial literacy is really important because if you get that $1,000 and at the end of the day it's not, you don't know what to do with it,
right,
then you end up really not changing the paradigm. So,
right.
but I like that there, folks are thinking about it. And what I really appreciate was your book. So
Thank
I
you.
wanted to get back to that, and I'm gonna ask Shevry to put that back up again. And if you could tell folks where they could get a copy, because again, it's really easy to read, but it's chock full of great information. So How can folks get a copy?
It is available on Amazon, uh, and in both the hard copy and the ebook, and it is also available from directly from the publisher. August Press is the publisher. August Press LLC. They're based in Virginia, and
Hmm.
the way to get a signed copy would be to get it from the publisher.
Wonderful. Okay, I didn't do that. I should have. I don't know. But I'll find you and get mine signed.
Yes,
I want to do
we'll
that.
see at your site.
Well, I want to thank you so much for being with us. Sorry, we ran over, but I thought this was important enough, as some folks have put in the chat, that that we're not acknowledging April as Financial Literacy Month. Of course, we need to talk about this every single day and not just during the month of April. And I'm glad you had some time to spend with us to share such great information.
And thank you so much for inviting me.
Okie doke. Give Ms. Brooks, Dr. Brooks, my hello, and we hope to talk to her sometime soon as well.
Okay, I will do that.
Okie doke. All right. Have a good one.